Norman castles in England. There was William the Conqueror from Normandy, northern France, coming over to England, and he started then to build castles. For example, he started to build first in timber and earth the White Tower in London. And when it was built, the White Tower in London was stones. And like that, 2,000 of these Norman castles were over the centuries built in England. Like 1,000 years earlier, the Roman camps all over the country to control from these castles out of the country. And they were oftentimes at the bend of the river or at a good place at the cliff to have a good outlook and view of the surrounding. Chateau Gaillard, which would be in France, is an example of such a situated castle. And there was then the big tower in the center, and then oftentimes there were then added more walls with towers from which archers could shoot, and then ditches were widened and deepened and filled with water to make them moats. The lord was living in the central building, and then there were quarters for the troops, for the soldiers, and also stables for the animals. And examples like Dover Castle or Chepstow grew then to become almost like a little village. The whole purpose of it was that it could withstand sieges, so that they could live for weeks or months without access to food or water from the outside. And these castles were built to impose the power of a ruling lord, to collect from that places out taxes, even if the population was resisting for that purpose. And around the 15th century, when these castles weren't built anymore, there were some changes. For example, the feudal system wasn't so much in use anymore. That was that the king was assigning land to the lord, which was then governing it, something like that. And other things like also that the administrative system changed a bit and there was more power by the king. So these castles weren't used so much anymore. And another thing also is strategically, the reason is there that gunpowder was invented, and now if such a castle was attacked, it was no longer a sword or spears or arrows against these walls, but it was now, and maybe a few catapults, with some stones thrown, it were now cannons, because gunpowder was invented, and against these cannons, these castles weren't working so good anymore. So from the 15th century on, these castles weren't built so much anymore, and not at all, and the old ones were oftentimes falling to ruins. And that is according to the history of the kings and queens of England and Scotland, written by Edmund Swinglehurst on the page 40 and 41. The positions and views expressed are the ones of a source and don't necessarily align with my own, or the ones of the entities spoken of.